What I'm talking about, of course, is the Chicago Huntsmen. I said at the end of last program that they would look a little bit different going into Florida weekend, and that's exactly what happened. Getting a little serious here because this is certainly a serious topic. Gunless has been benched by the Chicago Huntsmen. He confirmed this on his stream that he will no longer be a part of the starting lineup. Now, we don't know officially who will be replacing Gunless. We saw Jordan General scrimming with the team. We surmise that that might be the change. We have not officially heard this. But Gunless has been benched. And the quote by him on stream was, "None of my teammates wanted to say a word to me on what was happening." And so this is interesting because we know, Katie, that this team has experienced some challenges since the move to online. Was Gunless in particular the right move to make here?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because you can always make the argument, like you could have with Seattle Surge, where Enable turned out to be a premature benching on that team. So are you going to see history repeat itself with Chicago in a premature benching of Gunless? We don't know yet. But I think it's very interesting. Of all of the players on that team, it would have been Gunless if it was going to be anyone. So I've heard, I don't necessarily know. I've seen from scrims that there's not a major improvement right now with General, but it oftentimes it can be a big vibe thing playing a huge role for these teams. But it's interesting, right? Because Chicago, I think personally, was showing signs of a decline and a struggle before it went online. Of course, you had CDL Atlanta. You were seeing things from them that actually seemed to follow a very similar pattern to what we saw from Optic Gaming last year in the Black Ops 4 season. They come in hot. They're one of the best teams. They were the best team off the rip. They absolutely smoked everyone at CWL Las Vegas and won it. And then you watched them in this kind of slow and steady decline where they'd maybe make a grand final or maybe make a semi, and then they'd just fall apart and they'd not be able to close out the deal. So I don't know if history is repeating itself there with that team. But now, obviously, the Chicago Huntsmen, not Optic Gaming LA, two different things now. But I feel like it could potentially be premature, but there's so much going on here that you kind of have to sit back and just, like, see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think it's weird because I agree that Gunless was going to be the one who would be benched because, like, and this is going to sound kind of terrible. It doesn't even seem performance based. It just seems as like, this is the change we can make. That's like the least controversial, I guess, and see if we can't switch up something internally in the team regarding some sort of like synergy. Because I don't think it's definitely, like, in my opinion, it's not like an individual performance issue. It's not like you're looking at him and being like, wow, he was definitely the issue on this team. I actually would strongly disagree with that. I don't think that there's like a one, like even though I know a lot of people, I think, might point to Formal and be like, you're underperforming. I think for me, this isn't like an individual underperformance problem for the Huntsmen. It's a team problem.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know if it'll help. I actually thought the Huntsmen were going to stick it out and see if what they could do internally with this lineup still, with their like regular starting lineup still. They have another 2 weeks before Seattle, so if it doesn't work out in scrims, I feel like they can bring Gunless back on. Like, they do have a longer stretch of time here to play around with the roster, right?
Well, and they could bench him and then in these next couple weeks decide that's not going to work. He's still our best option and bring him back on. But to that point, I know that the stats don't necessarily say a lot from these tournaments because they're so short and the amount of teams that you play, the amount of times you play is much condensed. But Formal had a phenomenal series, had a phenomenal weekend for that tournament. All of his stats across the board for every mode were above a 1.0. Gunless, on the other hand, didn't break a 1.0 on any of them. The closest he got was a 0.99 in hardpoint, and he was dropping a 0.76 and a 0.75 in S&D and domination, respectively. So I would say, to the point of stats, they don't tell the whole story, but the Gunless we've seen this year has not impressed me as much as the Gunless we saw in Black Ops 4.
I think those are great points. I think that if the Huntsmen were to make a change, the timing is right. I agree with that for sure, in the sense that they now have at least as much amount of time as they can before they are next in action, because they skip this weekend, obviously, and they play in the Seattle home series on the 22nd of May. So if they had decided to make a change, make it sooner than later. Totally agree there. Gunless, whether it is a performance thing, whether it is a vibe of the team thing, this is not the first time that Gunless has been in a situation like this before. In fact, on stream, he mentioned that something similar happened to him on Christmas Eve of all times. So he's definitely been in a situation like this before. Maybe there was something off with the vibe of the team. Like I said, maybe they weren't getting along. Maybe there was something we didn't see. But I also wonder, is General, if he is to be the replacement here, is he going to be that fix? Because we've heard from multiple players in recent times. Look at what Arcides has been saying. He's been very honest, right? He's basically said, look, we're sucking right now. Like, we should not be losing on paper, but we suck. Like, we're playing teams and we're giving up points. We're giving up rotations. We don't do that, but they are.
Yeah, I mean, my initial knee-jerk concern, and we'll get to this topic in a little bit, but is that General for Gunless is going to be like Chino for Cap or Pander for Enable, in that it's not a substantial improvement necessarily, in a way that you might need more changes than just one person, or the change you're bringing in isn't really going to tilt the scales in any particular direction.